Well, hello everybody, and welcome to another Learning Friday episode, we'll call it for now. Working title. Today I am joined by our own Theorycraft Thursday host, Ursinity.
Hello, hello.
And we're going to kind of get a little more educational. We've gotten some pretty overwhelming responses on this, and I am going to put my ego in my pocket for this show, and I am just going to try and learn because I am trying to get better at the game. I've been playing way too long, and it's time for me to start figuring out, the small things. Because Ursinity, for the longest time, I felt that there was just some ultimate answer to getting to, say, 4K. And that was, you play this set of heroes every game, and that's it. And I mean, I was under this illusion for years, I'll be honest. And I'm quickly realizing that it is absolutely the wrong way to look at the game. Even though I kind of already knew that, while I was doing it, I still thought that there was some ultimate answer. And that's why we're having Ursinity here today, is to kind of break that. Early on in Dota 2, I thought Nature's Prophet, for instance, was the answer. You're not going to get a hero that can do what Nature's does. Nature's isn't countered. It's all comes down to my play. And my Nature's is definitely struggling.
Yeah.
I have a game pulled up here that I want to talk to you about, and I want to see what you think could have possibly been done. We're going up against a Drow Ranger, an Earthshaker, a Juggernaut, a Necro, and an Abaddon. We have an Axe, a Nature's, a Leshrac, a Crystal, and a Wraith King. I'm on the Nature's. I am, jungling sometimes. I am laning sometimes. I'm trying to rotate around. I'm focusing on, trees and W, getting 1 level in Sprout before 5. Usually like a 1-1-1. Sometimes it's a 0-1-2 into a 1-1-2, or sometimes it's a 0-2-2. I want to know, is it always good to get Sprout by level 3, or
so generally all of the personally I don't play that much Nature's Prophet. I've played a bit, but excuse me, all the really good Nature's Prophets that I run into, what they do is it's less about jungling and farming efficiently and having really fast whatever item build you're going, because there's so many options. It's more about the rotations and even offlane Nature's Prophets, but especially jungle Nature's Prophet. What you want to do is have some degree of coordination and some degree of threat and aggression coming out from the Natures. So if you go a build without Sprout and without TP, you're not going to be able to provide that aggression, right? If you're just sitting in the jungle, spawning trees and farming, sure, you're making money, sure, you're getting a fast whatever item you're going, but, all of the lanes are weaker, especially if you're playing a jungler and you only have one support. The really threatening way to play Nature's Prophet that I think is most intimidating and most threatening, but also most beneficial overall for your team, is playing kind of whether it's in the 3 position or 4 position, roaming Nature's Prophet, where, you said you have a CM on your team. CM can smoke or even just walk and go over to mid lane. And I assume on the other team they had a mid Necrophos, just going by their comp. Necrophos isn't going to be able to escape if you just sit in jungle until level 3, and then by level 3 you have 1-1-1. You TP, you Sprout. They're effectively immobile for 3 seconds. It's a mid laner, so they probably don't have real tangos. They probably just have pooled tangos, which they won't be able to use more likely than not, or they'll both be used by that point if you're already level 3 from jungling. And between CM and or really any roaming hero and Nature's Prophet and your mid lane Leshrac or your mid lane whatever, Invoker, etc., you're just going to kill the person. And very few heroes can escape from that kind of early aggression. And Nature's Prophet does a lot of just pure physical damage, especially if you do the null phase boots Bassi build that a lot of people do.
And that's the thing.
So it's all about pressure, especially as a jungler.
So in this game, I was farming. Everything was going well. I pick up, boot Windlace because talking to Proud, I've been buying Windlace a lot more.
God, honestly.
Yeah, and it's one slot. It's cheap. I can sell it and get a 50% return if I need that slot. On Nature's Prophet, you're probably not 6 slotted, and you could probably use some move speed. Yeah. So I do that. I get the Windlace, and then I build a Shadow Blade, and I feel like it was just dumb. Like, it was a waste of 2,800 gold, and honestly, I think I would have been better off just selling it and getting 1,400 gold back from it. I don't know. It's honestly these guides, and that's kind of what I wanted to break down is I'm following guides still, even on heroes that I have 100+ games, and that's probably a mistake, I'm guessing.
Yeah, I mean, I never used guides. Like, if I use any kind of guide, it's by looking something up on Dota Buff, and I just go to the top players. Or I normally don't go to, like, it depends on the hero, because sometimes the top player is irrelevant. Like, to use an example, Oracle. When I was learning how to play Oracle, if you go to, like, the top few Oracle players on Dota Buff, they play offlane Oracle, and it's not at all applicable, or mid Oracle, which is the dumbest thing in the world. But they play a different kind of Oracle. So if you are doing that method, go to, like, look through the top 5. Don't just click the first guy and be like, oh man, I should be playing him like this. You have to kind of look at a swath, like you have to look at a few people. But that being said, I completely lost my train of thought. But if you're trying to learn a hero, look at things. Oh yes. So when instead of using like the in-game guides, and by this point, like, I have builds on everybody, but if I'm trying to learn a new hero, I wouldn't use the in-game guide. I would just, I mean, if you have a second monitor, or even if you only have one monitor, just like minimize, type Ricky Dota Buff, and click to, I don't even know what it's called. Look up, you click guides, and it shows you like all the top players, their skill progression, their item progression, even from starting gold, and just follow that. Like, if you look up Ricky like I am right now, you'll see like, oh, okay, they're all maxing Cloak and Dagger. They all get 1/1/1 at 3, and you can extend that to any other hero. And you'll notice general themes. Like, to continue with the Ricky example, everybody goes Orb of Venom opening, they go Phase Boots, and then they go usually Diffusals. Sometimes they break off for Drums or Vlad's, like stuff like that. Those general themes you'll learn more from than just having an in-game guide on, and from somebody who, you don't even know who wrote this guide, like whether it's somebody reputable or if it's just some random schmuck that wrote a guide 2 patches ago or something. So that would be my advice, is like, don't use the in-game guides. Look things up on Dota Buff.
Do your research.
Or ask a friend. Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's so easy, especially like, again, if you have a second monitor. Like, I was playing Coddle yesterday, and I don't play Coddle, but the hero is good in certain situations, so I need to learn it. Mm-hmm. And I just, on my second monitor, or you could also very easily just have a minimized thing, I just had the top Coddle games, and it shows on Dota Buff, it shows like approximately 7,000 MMR average this game, approximately 6,500 MMR this game, 5,000 whatever. And I just, whenever I was scaling up, I just looked to my right, or you click to your screen and you say, oh, okay, at level 7 he did X. So then you just replicate that, and that's going to be a lot more insightful than just being like, oh, whatever guide highlighted this in orange, so I'm going to listen to that. Also, guides, like, it's easy to fall into a habit of just blindly following guides and just clicking like, oh, okay, this is what the guide maker told me to do, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
When Dota is such a situational game, that's not applicable at all.
And I'll be honest, like, there are so many things that I feel bad saying I disagree with, because I'm not a great Dota player, but for instance, the Tortellini's guide for Slark, starting items on Slark, with it's Stout Double Fairy Fire Quell.
No, Stout Double Fairy Fire Mango. I remember this.
Yeah,
because we were streaming this game,
and of course I ignore it. Even though I like his skill build, because I think it's the only skill build for a safe lane Slark, which is W, then E, then max Q. Yeah. So it's like a 3-1-1-1 is essentially what it is, and then it turns into a 4-1-1-1, and then it turns into a 4-4-1-1,
And
one one. Yeah.
even that's not resolute. Like there's like if you have like high fighting situations, you go like 2-2-1. Or if it's a melee offlaner, one thing Proud does that absolutely wrecks, that's really opened my eyes to this, is he goes 1-1-2 at 4. And with 2 points essence shift, every time you trade with that person, they're not going to have a full stat in everything, and you're going to have an extra 3 agi for the next 40 seconds or whatever, some absurd amount of time.
So it lasts a lot longer getting it to
Yeah.
level 2.
It's like the it's very every situation is nuanced, and I said this the other week in one of our educationally minded podcasts. Like Dota is a very nuanced game, so you need to approach it with nuanced way of thinking.
Sure.
And even like a hero like Slark, where yes, probably 75% of the time that is the right build, like 3-1-1-1. But it's important to be aware, like, all right, in other situations, I might want to get 2 points in pounce because
And I have
whatever.
before. And of course, I've deviated when it's like, oh my god, I just need levels and I'm getting harassed so hard. I
Yeah,
need Pounce to be off cooldown quicker.
exactly.
So I get 2 levels. All right, I want to kind of switch topics here and go for something a little more broad, which is I feel, and I don't know if this is just me, but I feel like the strength core is quickly becoming like the new agi core.
Hmm.
As in every game that I've been playing lately, I've been seeing almost more strength cores than I have agi cores. And honestly, I don't know how to go into a game and think differently from playing anti-mage to playing Sven. Like they're both farming carries,
Hmm.
but I know that, and I'm playing them super similarly, but they're not even in the same category. And I know that I should probably be thinking somewhat differently.
I mean, they are similar in that they are high investment one position carries that but the key difference, and this is going to sound like the most obvious thing in the world, but one is strength and one is agility, right? So one is inherently more survivable, and his playstyle has to reflect that, right? AM is more finesse. And again, this is all going to sound kind of simple, like overly simplistic, because yes, obviously anti-mage is agility and Sven is strength,
Hmm.
but you definitely have to tailor your playstyle to AM, where you're going to want to blink in, abyssal somebody, melt them, and they're just going to pop. Whereas a hero like Sven, you're going to want to have more setup and then like stay in the fight for longer, and you're not going to be jumping around on the sides. This is more applicable or more obvious in like high finesse heroes, like let's say Drow Ranger. Drow
Yeah,
Ranger, if you commit
super high
and
finesse.
you get jumped on, you're just gonna die and you're worthless. But you have to kind of skirt the sides and like use Hurricane Pike Will and stuff. Whereas a hero like Wraith King, you just walk at people, or like I suppose you go blink, and then you're just in the fight and you just punch things. So your playstyle has to more or less adapt to the survivability and the strengths of your hero. So AM's strength is that he has a blink every 6 seconds. Sven's strength is that he punches things real good,
Yeah,
and those
basically.
two, that's a very important dichotomy. And even though both are, like you said, one position, high investment carries that consume tons of farm off the map and have similar peaks and valleys farm wise, like both of them should be peaking around like 22 minutes. Um, and so that's kind of how you have to adjust your play style. Especially some Sven builds that don't go blink, like that is probably the most obvious issue or most obvious time you'll notice the difference between an AM and a Sven.
Yeah.
It's because the Sven is just going to run at people. Usually like the non-blink builds will go Saint and Yasha instead, so you're building move speed as opposed to a blink dagger. Um, so in that situation, like it's even more straightforward. Like you pop Warcry, you run at people, you punch them, and if you don't like kill them fast, they're gonna get away from you. And or if they're trying to get away from you, you have the speed from your S and Y and your Warcry, and you can just run at people and hit them. Whereas AM, it's very skirmishy and like you're popping around in the fight, you're jumping on different targets, you're trying not to get kited by fog of war, stuff like that. So that's kind of the easiest example.
Do you think
And
that's true for strength cores versus agi cores,
yeah,
like in general, like
almost
finesse versus like punch 'em type thing?
yeah, almost universally. I mean, like if I was to pull up the chart here right now, like if you look at your like strength cores, right? The first one, Alchemist, he's a very like run at you core, or I mean, a lot of these guys will just build blink daggers, so you can pop right in, but then still you blink in and then you're committed. More like one position strength cores would be like Chaos Knight. Chaos Knight's similar. He's gonna pop all his illusions and run at you. And if his run at you
Or
doesn't
pull
work,
you. Yeah, pull you in.
yeah, either way, you're like closing distance, and it's just very straightforward run at you. Dragon Knight, another one. You're fighting, and like you're just punching the tower, and you're hitting the tower, and you're hitting the tower, and you're not trying to like do anything fancy. More strength cores, Huskar, right in the fight. You're doing things. It's very brute force.
Life
Lycan,
stealer.
yeah, Lifestealer is another great example.
Run at 'em.
Lycan is another one. Like Lycan has a little more finesse because he has that high move speed, but in general, like he's just hitting you. He's a melee hero, and it's not like he's going to be doing anything from the fog of war, right? If he's doing stuff to you, it's going to be while he's on top of you. And the same thing goes for like Core Sven, Core Slardar, like or Tiny. Like yeah, sure they might have a blink, but overall, like they're in the fight and they're committed. And then if you move to the Agi cores, AM, he's gonna be in and out of the fights. Bloodseeker, he's in and out of the fights. Clinks, in and out of fights. Drow Ranger, in and out of fights. Ember Spirit, also kiting you around. Faceless Void, kiting you around, using all that manipulation, jumping around. Juggernaut is more of a classic strength style, I guess you'd say, example. But he's also a stat-heavy Agi core compared to some of the not-so-stat-heavy, more damage-heavy cores. Luna's another one. She's more straightforward. She's not kiting. But, your Maranas, your PAs, Weaver's another good example. So basically, most of the strength cores, with like minor exception, if any, are more straightforward, run at you, just like melee attacking, doing straightforward damage, straightforward abilities, whereas agility cores have a bit more finesse. And that doesn't necessarily mean that the harder, quote unquote, more finesse-based heroes are necessarily better, but in certain situations, you want different things. So in a push lineup, you want somebody straightforward that's going to tank up your team and just be able to punch towers like a Dragon Knight or a Lycan or an Alchemist or, like the earlier example, a CK or a Sven. Whereas if you're fighting a more skirmishy build, then you might go with an agility core like an AM or an agility core like a PL or a Weaver or whatever. That's going to accent that kind of skirmishy play style.
Okay. That's really cool to, I don't know, break it down to just, the three. Strength, agility, and intelligence. Obviously, if it feels like Agi is kind of reserved for that, carry position, with a few exceptions on support for Agi, or for Agi.
And offlaners,
Yeah, and offlaners. And then your intelligence, like I said, support. There's a few int cores in there that are extremely good, of course. And then strength just kind of seems like I'm looking over the list that like pretty much every hero is a run at you hero. Like even the support, like look at an Undying offlane, like that's kind of a run at you hero. Look at like Treant to a certain degree is even a run at you hero with Leech Seed.
Absolutely.
Timbersaw run at you, Tidehunter run at you, Spirit Breaker run really fast at you, Legion Commander get to you to duel you. Like Elder Titan would be maybe the most not run at you hero, but his spirit's still running at you.
I was gonna say he's running a spirit at you.
Yeah, so it's like it very much so you can I guess identify in your mind in that pick phase that do you want to run at him? Then pick something strength related. Like is it something that you want to do, and that's cool to break down.
Yeah, so, again, it sounds oversimplified, and like I'm sure tons of listeners and even myself, if somebody told me that, like I'd be like, obviously, okay, but it's a
mental checklist. It's a mental checklist when you're picking, in my opinion.
I think there's a certain tendency because Dota is such a complicated game, and so much of the knowledge is so like complicated and nuanced, and like has so many moving parts to it that when you boil it down to such a simple thing like strength heroes run at you, agility heroes skirmish, like. Yeah. It sounds like, oh, that's too simplified. And like there are, yes, exceptions, obviously. Like we were talking about Luna. That's not as skirmishy as some other cores. But having that very baseline, like very simple piece of information to like, right at pick screen, you see your team is running a push strat, probably don't pick like an AM or don't pick something that is not going to accent the push strat, which is inherently a run at you kind of strat. So those kind of very simple, bare bones things, like they might sound oversimplified or like a little like ham-fisted, but it's very valuable to just be like, hey, this game, you can kind of boil it down to very simple things.
Well, yeah, and I think, what I struggle with probably the most is I find my game and, I'm solo. I'm playing solo MMR, so people are doing what they're doing and they're putting their heroes where they're putting their heroes. I'm not the type of person to, like, hurry and hover over Sven and put Sven in safe lane. I'd much rather see what everybody else wants to do and what they're comfortable with. And I feel like, okay, I've got a grasp on, heroes from every single pools being intelligence, agility, and strength. And I've never quantified it this way, in my thinking until now. But, I always tend to lean toward the hero that is going to accent the team in, the best way. What I really want to know is intelligence, because this is where I get a little confused. Like, strength and agi heroes seem pretty straightforward. I mean, anybody that's looking at a list, if you're sitting at your computer, I mean, you can think of them pretty easily. And yeah, the run at you and then the skirmish thing is a pretty easy way to, umbrella each of them.
Mm-hmm.
But intelligence is, I feel like, much harder to put an umbrella over. Because this is kind of where your weird, interactions come into Dota, is in these intelligence heroes.
Yeah, I mean, intelligence heroes, and again, like, I realize that this is all sounding very, like, baseline, but it's important to keep in the head of your mind. Like, I mean, we've both played thousands and thousands of hours of Dota, and, like,
Yeah.
it's easy to feel like, well, obviously I know that intelligence heroes are based on their spells more so than agility and strength cores, but, like, it's important to think about that kind of stuff. That being said, intelligence heroes I would kind of stratify based on there's more of a mix of supports and cores in intelligence, whereas in agility and strength, it's primarily
Like
cores.
off-lane.
Yeah,
There's
off
still a
laners,
core,
safe
yeah.
laners, and mids. So intelligence, you kind of got to break up between, like, your invokers and your coddles, for
Yeah.
example. That being said, the kind of unifying concept between all the intelligence cores is that they are more reliant on their spells, and when you look at your intelligence list, they are a lot less item dependent, and they come on at earlier points in the game depending on the player's skill, whereas your agility cores and your strength cores, they come online based on their items. And again, yes, obviously anybody can tweet at me, there are plenty of examples that this does not apply to. OD obviously does not come on early, like, he needs his items.
Yeah.
That
No,
being said,
of course.
it's a good general theme to think intelligence cores are going to come on earlier because they have nuking abilities, for instance, a lot of them. And again, as I'm saying this, I realize there's so many examples that this is not true for. But overall, they're going to come on earlier because spell damage is better in the early game than it is in the mid game and the late game, because health pools are lower and there are less items and there are less ways to obstruct spell damage. And that's why your agility cores and your strength cores that are doing physical damage are going to come on in that mid to late game when spell damage starts falling off.
Yeah.
An example would be like Ember Spirit, who's an agility hero, but his early game is based largely on spell damage, and then once that spell damage starts to peter off, he transitions into being a physical damage core with Battle Furies and Daedalus.
Yeah.
So that's like, that's probably one of the easiest examples where, different things for different phases of the game.
It is strange. I remember just recently finding out, because I looked at the hero list that I'm looking at now, that Windranger was intelligence, because it felt so weird. If she just seemed agi, and I think it may have been because she was green
And she had a bow.
and she had a bow. But thinking about Windranger, she is all about her spells. Without her spells, she's literally, just doinking you with an arrow, and if you have a poor man's shield, she's doing like 0 damage. So yeah, like, and I remember first picking up Windranger and being like, this is so easy, I just power shot. And I mean, that's not really where Windranger comes into play. It's more Shackle Shot, which is a highly, like, it seems like it's like a mix between agi and int, because it requires a ton of finesse, a ton of skirmish, but you have to land the spell, So it feels like agi lends more to intelligence than it does to strength, if that makes sense. Like, some of the beliefs that are in agi can be carried over into int. I feel like Your spells on your strength heroes are less important than your spells on your agility heroes are less important than your spells on your intelligence heroes. Would you agree?
Um,
I mean,
I
spells
think
are
agility
important.
and strength are fairly tied, but I think the key thing here is that intelligence heroes are inherently squishier because they have lower strength pools, with the exception of Bane, than strength heroes, for instance. So, intelligence heroes, you're going to have a lot more spells that are more finesse based and more like escaping spells, stunning spells, etc. Whereas your strength heroes are going to have spells that accent their strengths. So they're going to have spells like Night Stalker, to use an example. His spells accent the fact that he runs at you
Yeah.
and he's going to be just trying to run you down a lane. He's going to be tanking towers, etc. Or a hero like Timbersaw or a hero like DK, right? Their spells accent their kit. And intelligence heroes, their kit is based more around being in the back of fights or being in a fight where the enemy are disabled. So, everybody's strengths follows their stats, with
Yeah.
few exceptions, right? Io is the one exception within strength. And
Hmm.
intelligence, you have exceptions like Bane. Bane's an incredibly tanky support. That being said, his skills are accented by his stat base.
Yeah. And you also get that the weird Arc Warden, of course, being new, where he
Yeah.
has his lowest score is Agi, yet he's an Agi hero. Which I don't even care to talk about him, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
He's just
He's not
useless.
terribly relevant, unfortunately. I mean,
No, they,
I I
the
would say, like, when we're telling me about these like broad strokes, like I'd say probably 75% of the heroes within each pool at least follow that basic tenet, where it's whether it's me saying strength heroes run at you, agility heroes skirmish and finesse and farm a bunch, or intelligence heroes are more spell based than their counterparts in agility or strength.
hmm
So there are exceptions, yes, but overall, I would say, everyone's accented by their kits. So strength heroes or agility heroes, if their kit is to farm a lot and their kit is to be a carry, they're inherently going to do less without those things.
yeah.
Intelligence heroes, they are not based off of having a bunch of items, so
It's
they're going to
true.
scale better in the early game.
And I mean, yeah, put slapping that 75% tenant, because I mean, you have your Tinker who needs the bots, you have your Storm Spirit who needs some mana regen, you have your Quap that definitely needs some stuff. But for the most part, like, I was playing, my very last game I played was Zeus mid, and I realized very quickly that I didn't need many items. Like, I needed something with mana regen, and Yule seemed good. I needed, some way to get levels. I went Midas, because
Oh,
I was,
okay.
we were stuck in base, and I was like, I'm gonna get Midas. I'm gonna make sure I get level 16, and because we were losing, and we did lose the game,
Hmm.
um, and I realized that, like, it didn't really matter that I had those items. I had an Aether Lens, and that was basically the only thing that made me better as a Zeus,
Yeah.
because of the 5% bonus spell and the range increase.
Yeah, I mean,
Um,
to kind of take that example a little further, I mean, if you compared heroes, right? You compared just use Zeus and a Juggernaut, right? Zeus's spells, I mean, nowadays with the advent of Aether Lens and some of the changes to intelligence adding the spell damage, overall, Zeus, though, his spells are going to do generally the same thing for the entire game. Once he's level 7 and you have level 4 Lightning Bolt, that is going to do 360 magic damage for the rest of the game, with the minor variation of Aether Lens, whatever. Whereas Juggernaut, he has crit, and both of these are actually their W's, which makes it even more convenient, for my
yeah,
example. His crit is going to change wildly over the course of the game because his hero and his kit is based around farming, and it's based around getting plus damage items and plus stat items. So intelligence heroes, their items all facilitate them to use their abilities, but they don't actually make their abilities better.
hmm
Whereas agility heroes and strength heroes, more so towards agility, any hero with passives basically, which you see very few passives in intelligence, and that and more within agi and strength, those are going to scale with the heroes items. And yes,
yeah.
so
Do you think this is the reason that when somebody's first starting Dota, you always kind of put them on an int hero? I mean,
um
because it's like, hey, don't worry about killing things and accumulating gold, because getting that mechanical skill takes time. just go ahead and take an int hero? Or do you think that maybe telling somebody that's new to pick a strength hero because they already want to run at people when you're new, right? Like you want to dive, you want to run at people, you want to hit people. Do you think it would be better to advise newer players to play strength heroes before playing int heroes? Because int heroes rely on the finesse of using your spells in the right sequence. Like I can think of Ancient Apparition, for example. I can think of Bane, for example. Like the wrong Nightmare is going to be a nightmare for your team. Like it's going to mean like you just lost a kill. And so it's like, or like Crystal Maiden, for instance. That's what I mean, my wife started on Dazzle and realized that was not a good idea because Shallow Grave has such a long cast point and it's really hard to land a Shallow Grave.
Yeah.
And asking a new player to, when I'm about to die, take more than half a second and try and find me through the crowd of people and cast that on me. Like it's kind of a lot to ask from a new player. Whereas Bristleback, it's like, hey, just press W a bunch of times, get, some mana, and like it won't be that bad. Or Abaddon, for instance, or Abaddon, just kind of you get your shield leveled up, hit people with get one level in Curse of Avernus, hit people. By the way, sorry guys, I have Skype on Do Not Disturb, yet it's still disturbing me. It's obnoxious. It's been doing this whole episode. I apologize. I'll get it fixed. But I mean, what do you think it's right to advise new players to be on those like Liches and those Crystal Maidens, or do you think that there should be a different philosophy and like, hey, pick up Earthshaker? Maybe that's a bad example because Earthshaker can like really fuck over a fight with a bad Fissure.
Yeah, I think obviously it's gonna be different. So like certain people, like if I was teaching one of my friends to play Dota, like they might be the kind of player and you just know like this guy is not gonna have fun if I put him on like Lich. He's the type of player that wants to run at people. Like, if somebody plays like a ton of first person shooters, they're probably gonna be the kind of person that just wants to fight a lot. Like you're not gonna put that person on like Enchantress Jungle or like Coddle. Like that person would not want to play Dota. So there's that element to like if you're teaching somebody new to play Dota, like you want to get them enthused in Dota, so make them play something that A, they're going to like, but B, is suitable to a newer player. That being said, I think when you're new at Dota or when you're teaching newer players Dota, it's less about the stat or stat of the hero. It's more about like the positions. You want to have them be playing a lot of 5 positions and 4 positions. And obviously there are outliers. Like, I mean, it's a good way to teach people Dota and get them to enjoy Dota by like running aggro duo lanes and maybe having them play like a 3 or a 2. And having like Bristleback's a really good example actually. Like you could teach somebody to play Dota and just like, all right, just pick Bristleback. I'm gonna pick CM or I'm gonna pick whatever other hero to accent the Bristleback and just have a good time.
And run at people and press W and try not to go under the tower. But even if you do go under the tower a little bit, you'll probably still live.
You don't want to give people bad habits, though.
You don't want to give people bad habits. But, like, for instance, Crystal Maiden runs under the tower, gets hit twice, and that's devastating, And that's been, a tough thing, whereas... And
he also does that in Tiny Strength. It's just because he has a 0 base armor.
0 base armor, sure.
That's more of a general question that is less, like, stat-based.
And hard to answer, honestly. But
and there are, like, 110 heroes or whatever at the end of the day, so... Again, like this entire discussion has so many like exceptions to the rule that it's just good to keep in mind. The general focus is behind your hero, whether in any situation. Like just think, all right, what does my hero accomplish? And you can kind of make bolder statements like, oh, well, most agility heroes accomplish X or Y, but if you're picking a specific hero, if you're scrolling your wheel over to Nature's Prophet. When you pick Nature's Prophet, even if you you just think like, all right, why am I picking Nature's Prophet? I'm picking Nature's Prophet because my team lacks push. And Nature's Prophet is going to push. He's going to have a lot of malleability within his item build. So he's going to be able to build drums if we want to push. He's going to be able to build an Orchid if we need one because they pick a
Slark.
Yeah. Or they picked Quap. All right, so we need an Orchid carrier. Okay. So that kind of stuff. And yes, we can draw it out to kind of the more macro level of like most strength, agility, and intelligence heroes are going to accomplish whatever. But more specifically, if you're picking Razor, think, all right, I'm picking Razor because they picked Dragon Knight or they picked some other melee mid, and I want that person to have a terrible time. Like, think about those things. And the same
Yeah.
thing for counter picking. Like, if you see the enemy team pick DK mid, think, all right, what is his mid gonna do? His mid is going to push whenever he hits 6. His mid is going to be very straightforward and just walk at our towers with Dragon Form or fly at our towers, whatever.
And
And do those kind of very simple things. He's
and
gonna
high armor too. So like I at first Wind Ranger popped into my mind, and then I thought, no, maybe not Wind Ranger.
Yeah, absolutely not Wind Ranger. That is like the worst choice. But you pick OD for instance, because all right, he's going to do
Okay.
pure damage. He's going to force the DK to build a BKB relatively early, whereas he may have waited otherwise. OD is going to wreck him in lane because he's a melee hero, and this is not an advantageous matchup. Same thing goes. Like I was playing Wind Ranger mid the other day. I fourth picked it, I think. This is actually in a team practice game. The enemy team picked Timbersaw. He built a poor man's shield, and he cut my wave, and I could do nothing because the matchup was disadvantageous. So clearly he thought, and he looked at this game, he said, all right, that Wind Ranger is going to be mid because they already picked a Darkseer or whatever pick it was for the off lane, so it's confirmed mid Wind Ranger. And then he thought, all right, what does Wind Ranger do? She is going to pepper me with last hits, or with auto
right
attacks.
clicks, yeah.
How do I best deal with that? I pick Timbersaw, who literally benefits from me hitting him. Like
And the
those
poor
kind
man shield, all he's getting is armor off you. He's taking no damage, but getting stacks of armor and regen.
Yep, it was
So-
miserable. It was one of the worst lanes I've ever played. And then he cut my wave. Oh god, it was terrible. Just think
man.
about that.
Yeah,
Also, I'm not a
that's
practice mid, but
That is pretty awful.
anyway.
So I want to throw another pretty general example. Say that I've been playing this game, and I've been exclusively practicing an int core, and we'll say Tinker, an agi core, we'll say Anti-Mage, and a Sven core, we'll say, and a strength core, we'll say Sven. When should I be picking these heroes? I mean, is there a universal answer to, oh, this is a Sven game, oh, this is an Anti game, oh, this is a Tinker game, or am I just good to get them at any time?
I mean, in my experience, and I don't remember if this was on the podcast or if this was when we were talking before, but in general, your pick is going to rely a lot on what your team is doing, and you want your teammates to be comfortable. So, if using that example, if your team, somebody instantly like clicked over to mid on the mini map and says last pick, then you're not going to be playing Tinker that game. And if you are playing Tinker, then you're probably going to have some idiot that's going to be mad all game or just intentionally feed because he didn't get his way. So that is a large element to impacting your hero pick. Or in that situation, if you really just want to play Tinker, like instantly go to mid and maybe first pick Tinker or something. Like you gotta, if you have an exact plan, like when we play our Theory Crafting Thursday games, we just first pick our stuff because we don't want to get other people trying to take our positions. So if you are like an incredibly narrow hero pool type of person, make sure that you clearly set up for your team to realize like, okay, this guy only plays 3 heroes. So, that being said, yes, for each individual case, there are games where Sven is going to be really good. There are games when AM is going to be really good, and there's games where Tinker is going to be really good. Sven is going to be really good if they have a if they do a lot of physical damage and don't have BKB piercing disables. AM is going to be really good if they lack lockdown. If they picked a bunch of heroes that don't have stuns and they don't have any silences, AM is going to be incredibly strong. Tinker is going to be good in a similar situation. Or if they're trying to drag out a game and they don't have much pickoff, then you can just kite them around the map and you can do all these kind of things. So every hero has its very specific situations. That being said, in a pub game, you can pretty much pick anything as long as you're not hard countered. Like if you've been spamming PL and the other team picks Sand King, I'm sorry, but you can't play PL this game. Like that kind of stuff is important.
Brood Mother versus Ember, a number of heroes, or even like picking Tinker into an Anti-Mage or picking Wraith King into an Anti-Mage.
Yeah,
I mean they're pretty obvious ones that like all of us know about. Where it's like, oh, we see PL pick Earthshaker, like that happens all the time. Where the PL gets picked and everybody knows on the team that someone needs to bite the bullet and play Earthshaker.
Yeah, or Sand King's better, but
or Sand King because of his E. Is that the reason?
Yeah, Caustic Finale.
Caustic Finale.
Especially like PL takes games late. Like PL doesn't accent pushing strats because PL sucks at pushing, and he's not good at Roche strats either, for the record, because he can't kill Roche.
And illusions, illusions just
Yeah.
disappear the second they
So
hit a
if
roast.
if you pick PL, I mean, if you see a PL in the enemy team, Sanking, because Caustic Finale, you can put it on illusions and they're gonna pop and they're gonna deal damage to everybody. But more importantly, the game is going to go at least decently late because they picked this PL and he is a hero that peaks around like after having a couple items, so it's gonna take a while. By then, you should be able to farm an Aghanims because Sanking farms so well. And if you can't, like maybe the game is lost otherwise. But generally, the idea is you pick Aghanims, and Aghanims makes it so your Impale, Earth Spike, whatever it's called, your Q, Burrow Strike, puts Caustic Finale on everything it touches. So it's going to put Caustic Finale on every single illusion, and all of those
Jeez.
illusions are going to pop.
Didn't
So
even realize that.
you're just going to kill PL over and over again, or kill all his teammates because you're doing whatever it is, like 260 AoE magic damage for every illusion, and they all pop even if they don't die because they buff Caustic Finale. Same reason why like you pick Sand King against melee mids or against melee offlaners. Like our team will run aggro tries and we'll safe lane a Sand King because he's going to match up against a Tide Hunter or a Clockwork or whatever other melee offlaner, and just wreck them because it's unplayable because you just put Caustic Finale on their creeps and they can't do anything because they take like 100 magic damage every time they enter the creep wave.
Jeez. And see,
Sand King's
I play
really
a
good.
lot of Sand King, but I play him level 1 jungle, and I know that that's putting so much strain on the team, and I'm starting to realize that as
It
well.
also just sucks because of the nerf to jungling because now
Because
everything
so
takes
much armor.
magic damage.
And you
Armor
have to
doesn't
start
matter.
on medium camps. If you get one of those pink dudes, the pink satyrs, you have to have level 2 in Sandstorm.
Or
you
if
can't
like
clear it.
if you're stacking and they get centaurs, like good game
Yeah, it's true.
because it's giving it all right. Now it has whatever it is, like 40% magic resist. Like
Yeah.
all right, cool. Now I can't do my thing.
It takes forever.
Sanking's much more of a traditional roaming 4 now, and like then you go jungle once you have like level 3.
Yeah, you need level 3, and I love the fact that he did get buffed that you can level 1 jungle and just be like, please no mud golems, and go and try and stack the medium camp, right? And
Yeah.
get your level 3 off the 2 medium camps, and just like, please no mud golems. But then mud golems suck, so
Yeah.
for
And
that,
you never want junglers that are so screwed by one single camp.
yeah.
That is less applicable nowadays because most junglers just buy Iron Talon. But back in the day, it used to be like, all right, I'm playing. I don't know. I can't think of a good example now. But like, if I'm playing like X jungler, or like a Chen and Enchantress, because if they just got bad spawns, like I played a Chen game with Flub, for instance, or he was playing Chen, I was playing something else, but he just got really unlucky spawns, and he kept getting the Cyclone birds,
Yeah,
the whatever it is, Wildkins, and like he tried to gank, but just RNG screwed him,
slow. Yeah, I mean,
and like all our ganks were failed, and we lost that game because we had like a Chen that did not do anything because he had bad spawns, and we couldn't push, and so we didn't tempo control with the Chen, which you're supposed to, and it's not because of his fault. It's just like, oh hey, he didn't get any troll summons, troll spawns, he didn't get satyr spawns, and he
Yeah.
didn't get centaur spawns, so now the hero sucks.
yeah,
So,
I mean, and I guess you could adapt. Like, I guess you could use those wildkin and have them both like farming camps with the tornado or pushing waves or whatever. But generally, you want Chen to be ganking. It seems.
yeah.
So
In that situation, a lot of times what you do is you'll just sit a Wildkin and you have him tornado in the fog, and you just have him. You keep the tornado in mid, and it's doing 30 magic damage a second to the enemy mid laner, and
Yeah.
it's like absolute misery to play against.
yeah, and I mean that's like a way to use it, but it's not that like level 1 he comes out with a satyr and just
Yeah.
pops two of the satyrs, whatever it's called.
Hadoukens.
Yeah, Hadoukens, and then gets the first blood. It definitely is very spawn reliant. All right, I want for the last section today, I want to ask you a couple questions about what I'm struggling with when I see these heroes picked. And I'll just list like a few that I just don't know what to do when they pick them. Generally, like I don't see a clear pick.
Okay, let's do it one at a time.
Okay, I want to start with your boy Carl with Invoker. I know Nyx Assassin. Okay, I know that Nyx Assassin is great against Invoker. And we could explain the reasons why if we want. I think it's pretty self-explanatory. The mana burn, high int hero hurts a lot when he gets mana burned. Where do I never have anywhere to put a Nyx. I can't jungle a Nyx. I can't. What do I safe lane support a Nyx? Do I?
You can play him as a safe lane support against some offlaners. You can play him as a roaming 4, but I mean he's not going to accomplish nearly as much as a roaming 4 as other roaming 4s will. Generally, you put him in the off lane and you just have the enemy safe laner free farm.
Yeah.
Because you can't contest farm as a Nyx.
He just seems like a shitty hero just to counter one hero. You know what I mean?
I somewhat agree. Nyx is in a weird situation now where like he has games where he really shines, but he only shines if you let him. Like he has to get to that phase where like he has mana boots and he has a blink, and if he doesn't get to that point, then like the hero is just like a crappy, stupid bug that just dies.
Yeah. And I know Lifestealer as well for the obvious reason of the Q, but it still feels nearly impossible to close the distance on Invoker as Lifestealer because you're literally crawling toward him. You know?
I mean, you want a Nyx bomb, or you want to have a blink on your Nyx in that situation.
Yeah. So what is? Every game I fucking play, there's an Invoker on my team or there's an Invoker on the other team.
Yep.
And I'm always like, okay, well, do I just pick the hero I'm comfortable with and just go with it and deal with the Invoker, or is there a set of heroes I should be looking at to specifically deal with this Invoker?
So generally, I mean, as I'm a well-known Invoker player, the worst things you want to run up against, especially this conversation, I guess you'd have to stratify it between cores and supports. Core-wise, you want to pick a core that builds a BKB, basically. Okay. So Sven is really good because what is an Invoker going to do when Sven has a BKB? That being said, if you want to be playing a hero that can get a BKB early, like PA is an example where she builds a BKB, but she doesn't build it in her first 2 items. And if she does, like, she's screwed because she's not going to have damage output. But against an Invoker, you want to pick either a core that has magic immunity, like a Juggernaut, or a Nyx, or Lifestealer. Nyx is a Dota 1 name. I know it's confusing for some people. I apologize.
I always thought, like, Nyx Bomb meant, like, he was using Vendetta. Or Nyx Bomb, and I was like, why do you spell it Naix? I don't get it.
It's one of those holdovers.
Yeah.
One of the few holdovers from Dota 1. Barathrum. Some people call Spearbreaker Barathrum still. They call him Bara.
Bara, yeah.
And then people still call Undying Dirge. Those are probably the only
Dirge.
3.
Okay.
That's not as applicable. People have been phasing those words out. Anyway, the other thing to deal with an Invoker is if you just have Disable that you can pop on him really quickly. So, like, the hero is based on just getting a ton of spells out. If you have a Bat Rider lasso him and run him back to your team, he's not going to get any spells off because you've bursted him. Or if you have a Bane that has locked him down for 6 seconds and he's dying in that space, it doesn't matter how good the Invoker player is if he's just dead. Or if you're stunned, again, I like to boil things down to these really simple things, which again sound like silly to the average listener, I'm sure. But if he's stunned, he can't do anything. Yeah. So if the hero that's built off of casting a ton of spells is stunned or silenced, he's not going to be doing anything good. So pick those kind of heroes, right? You want to disable him or burst him or be playing a hero that doesn't care if he casts spells.
Okay. I think that's good advice. And
if you want,
and that way you can look through the grid view and you can be like, okay, stun or silence or BKB. What does the team need? Where have people put themselves? Okay, I guess I'll play Bane. I'll play Bane. We already have a safe lane.
So Bane. Like, I mean, just for the sake of it, I'll give a specific example. So if I'm playing mid lane against Invoker, Puck is great because Puck has a silence. He has coil, which, I mean, even if the guy goes invisible, you still see the coil and he's still going to break coil. Another good mid against Invoker tends to be Wind Ranger. We like that matchup. I used to like playing Wind Ranger against Invoker a lot. Recently, I haven't played it.
What's the reason for that? Just constant harass, or?
Well, he's gonna have Forge Spirits, so it's natural shackle targets.
Oh, okay.
He's gonna, I mean, again, like the guy could go Quas Wex, but Quas Wex is not nearly as good as Exort in like 80% of situations. But also the other thing is he's gonna hit 8, and he's gonna try to kill you with double Forge, Cold Snap, Sunstrike.
And you just hit E.
Yeah, you just hit E and you walk away, or you hit E and you just run at him and kill him. Our mid does that a lot because Invoker is in every single bracket. He's super popular, so get used to it.
Yeah.
But our mid player plays Wind Ranger against Invoker all the time, and you'll see him do that every game. Invoker tries to aggress. He shackles a Forge Spirit to the Invoker. The Forge Spirits have less range than Invoker, so they're naturally going to be a little closer to you or to the tower, whatever. You shackle him to his Forge Spirit or to a regular creep. Then you power shot, and then you just when he tries to fight you, he's not going to do anything because he's Escort Quas, other than a Sunstrike if he can't hit you because you have levels in E. So that's a good mid. Again, for supports, you just want to lock him down.
I can see Disruptor being excellent.
That's probably my number one example, Disruptor. Yeah. Again, Nyx is good if you can fit it into your draft.
It doesn't feel like it fits in this meta for whatever reason. I can't quantify it. I can't tell you why.
I agree.
It just doesn't feel like it fits.
You can kind of make it work if you pick like a stunning 5, like
an ogre or something like that.
Rubik, or not ogre, because ogre is also like melee and a low range stun. So if like you have a ganking duo ogre Nyx, they're just gonna walk.
Yeah, they're both melee. Yeah.
Yeah. Or I mean, any ranged hero with a stun, Rubik,
or Silence. What about Skywrath? I mean,
Skywrath is also good. Skywrath's a very underutilized hero. Bane is another one that, like you brought up. Like, I mean, if the Invoker is trying to do stuff, you just angle on him the right way, and you get an ult off.
Or you have two abilities, really. I mean, you can take the team fight while he's nightmared, and I'll be honest, at my skill level, people very rarely will take the nightmare off of like a good nightmare target. Like say there's a CM that's gonna do pretty much nothing, or has already used her W and Q and doesn't have ult. She could take it off of Invoker, but she's probably not going to.
I mean, the Invoker should have Forge Spirits off, and you just take it off with the Forge Spirit.
Oh, dude, that's something I just learned right now, and I'm guarantee most people at the 2K level, they're not thinking like, oh, I can get my Forge Spirit and take this off. But of course, there are exceptions. I want to move on to a different hero that I struggle with, because when I can't pick him, I don't know how to beat him, and that's Sven. I know that it's like we're supposed to kite him. And I know that, like, you know, kite him around, do this, do that, kite him. But, like, with what? Like, what heroes should I be picking? And I'm specifically talking core. Like, oh my god, they took my core from me. What core do I pick to deal with him?
Like safe lane core, or like core in general? So
safe lane.
Safe lane. All right. So first off, the best example I would give for a hero you want to pick against Sven is Beastmaster. Because Beastmaster, Sven is a natural BKB carrier, so you want BKB piercing disables, so you want to pick heroes like Beastmaster or Shadow Demon. Shadow Demon ult is going to make the Sven move so slowly, like he's playing a different game.
Okay.
That's a hero. Also, Shadow Demon's like a god right now. That hero is so good.
Yeah.
If you can play it. It takes, I can admit I've been practicing it. It takes many games to get good at it. That being said, safe lane cores, I like to play against Sven. Honestly, our team has a lot of problems against Sven. The hero is very good. Safe lane cores, though, basically, again, this falls back on my earlier, I don't even know what I'd call it, my earlier speech about looking at the enemy heroes and seeing what their strengths are. When somebody picks Sven, right, you think, all right, they pick Sven. Sven is going to have a lot of armor, so you want to pick a safe lane core that is not reliant on physical damage, that is going to not have a huge problem with a guy that has 30 plus armor. You see as cleaves, so you're not going to want to pick illusion heroes, right? PL and Terrorblade, suddenly they have a lot less value. Although Terrorblade has some strengths against Sven, from what I see. So that narrows
basically
down
the range, right? Metamorphosis, and then
the range, yeah,
and his ult, obviously,
and
situationally,
his ult. Yeah. And Sven hates building MKB, so you want butterfly carriers are nice. That being said, once you've narrowed down the pool that far, also Sven's a very run at you hero, so you can kind of like, if you're playing Naga against him, you have a net to disable him. You can ult while he's BKB'd so that all his teammates are irrelevant and your team just has to focus one guy. Also, he's not going to be able to kill all your illusions because you're splitting them, and he's a very committal hero, like we talked about earlier. He can run at one single target or one group of targets and hit them, and hopefully he kills them right away with his Echo Saber and God Strength. But if he doesn't, suddenly he has problems. So you want to be able to kite him around. So if he has multiple targets like a Naga,
What
then
about
that's an
like
issue.
what about like Morphling and Medusa? Like are those heroes? Because like I generally think like, okay, I want a Morphling or a Medusa. The safe lane. Like, okay, the snake's good, and I can hit my ult, and it'll pierce BKB, and he wants to attack me, right click me. I can deal with some right clicks because of mana shield. Um, but then again, I'm not really putting out too much damage on him. You know
Yeah,
what I mean?
and
Other
that's
than
the
the
thing.
snake.
That's the thing with Medusa. Like you two are just going to be man fighting each other, and he's going to win out because he's playing a hero that, like, he's going to close the distance with you, and you're not going to be able to run away because you're playing Medusa, and you're not going to out trade him because he has God Strength active, and so now like you're in a man fight, except like you brought a bow to a sword fight,
Yeah.
basically.
So is it like Viper Razor? Do I take Razor safe lane? Do I and then
No,
farm him out?
so mid lane, I mean, Ursa is a good example of a safe laner that you'd want to play against a Sven, right? Because Ursa is going to be doing a huge amount of pure damage because of his Fury swipes.
Mm-hmm.
He's going to be hopefully bursting down the Sven with overpower.
And hopefully
If
a Skull
Sven,
Basher, right? And
yep,
getting some
he
stun.
naturally builds Abyssal. He once the Sven has BKB, you're still going to be doing a lot of damage to him. You can reduce the damage he's giving to you with your ult. You can naturally build an Aghanim Scepter, so he can't just he can't just blink on you, storm bolt, and kill you. That's a pretty natural item progression. Ursa Ags is pretty legit.
Yeah, because you can do it while you're disabled, similar
Un-
to Morphling,
yeah.
Morphling Strength, right?
Another good example, Morphling's okay against Sven. The issue is like Morphling generally to go a shotgun build, Sven builds BKB.
And
What do you?
then yeah,
One other valuable thing that I like to draft and see drafted against a Sven is somebody that can interrupt his ancient stacks, right? So as a Sven player, obviously like you are going to be massively gimped if you don't get your ancient stack around whatever it is, 11 or 12 minutes. And
yeah.
if you can't get that,
You want a 4 by 12 is what I'm. It was what I aimed for at least. I mean,
yeah.
I want a 4 stack
And
by 12.
so in that situation, there are two ways to deal with that. A, if you have map control, the guy's not going to be able to take his ancient stack because he's gonna commit to it, and naturally Sven's gonna get low.
Which is
because
like you take his blink dagger
items.
away.
Yeah,
Basically, is if you take the ancients away, it's like, okay, your blink dagger's not going to come when you wanted it to.
absolutely. So you can pick these kind of more tempo-based heroes that are going to be able to interrupt him taking his stack. Also, you could just block his stack with your supports. Just saying.
Yeah.
But the other thing to do is pick a hero that can contest his stack. So Gyrocopter is a good example,
Oh
where
yeah.
if you're playing a Gyrocopter draft, A, you're stacking your ancients, but B, the enemy team is stacking their ancients. So if you have tempo control and if you have some team fight or if you have some way to, if you've already taken the mid tower, mid T1, and the offlane tier 1, let's say you're going against a Radiant Sven as a Dire Gyro, they're going to have a hard time getting to you because they're going to have to TP to tier 2s and walk up compared to flanking you with tier 1 and tier 2. Hopefully, kind of listeners, you can visualize this, but you can contest the stack at least, or just straight take it. Like if you take a fight, let's say you take a fight in bottom lane, and you see, all right, they have a 6 stack of ancients because it's 13 minutes or whatever. You take your gyro and like whatever one of the hero to back them up just in case. You go take their ancients, and then you take your ancients, and suddenly not only have you benefited from your team stacking, but you've benefited from the Sven pick and the Sven stacking. Or like
So it's more like a team. You need a team to take Sven,
yeah,
basically.
yeah. Or like Tidehunter is a good example. Like you see an ancient stack, all right, Sven's dead because of whatever. Let's just go take his ancients, and you can contest him that way. Sven benefits from a lack of coordination from the enemy team. That's why he's so good in pub games. So a coordinated team can just say like, all right, it's 12 minutes, Sven's going to be taking a stack, or like, oh, hey, we have ward vision, Sven's taking a stack. Then you just 5-minute smoke and like, you just kill the Sven, you take his stack, and you kill his teammates because they also have to react, but they react once the Sven's already been gone on. So those are the kind of the two approaches: is either you pick heroes that don't care so much about the Sven's armor, or you pick heroes that can contest the stack, or you pick heroes to kite him. And hopefully you have some combination of like an offlaner like a Beastmaster that can lock him down, or a support like a Bane that can lock him down through his BKB, or some other combination of heroes that are gonna CC him and make sure you don't have to be too concerned. Bane against Sven is really nice too as a support player.
And that's good to know because oftentimes in party I play support. In solo, I play core, and most of the time we struggle with Sven in the party because, Wazoo will pick his Juggernaut or his, Lycan or
Yeah, Jug
whatever.
sucks against Sven,
I
by the
know.
way.
I always say Sven is greater than Jug, and I mean when I played in 82L last week when I drafted against him, I knew he was gonna pick that Jug, and I baited him right into it, and I got the Sven, and I was like Sven is greater than Jug. Sorry, like
Yeah.
that's just kind of how it goes. So, this has been another Friday episode. This time with Ursinity. We are all talking within .p, all the show hosts, on making this a regular staple, something educational. We'll definitely get it more structured and play to people's strengths. Ursinity is the 5 support for pretty much the 5 support, right? For Ham
Yeah, I've moved through the
or
positions, but
Murano, Hakuna Murano.
yeah, Hakuna Murano. I play, yeah, as of now, almost always. I wouldn't even say I play five.
You play
five
Winter
support.
Wyvern.
I play Winter Wyvern
Yeah.
for our team. But no, in general, I play five with support. But I've also like through the last like year or so, I transitioned through all the roles. So like I used to be a mid player, and I was a safe lane player at one point. So I have
Well, yeah. No, you have
I
a
can answer
great
any
understanding.
questions compared to some of our like Proud has always been a carry player, and like obviously he's just a good player in general, so he can answer any all questions about other things. But my expertise is more varied, I'd say. Whereas yeah, but yes, in general I play five support. Also, I mostly play Winter Wyvern. So that here is really good.
I know. Oh,
Yeah.
Denny hates it. Denny thinks it's the worst hero in the pool because of the ult change. And I was just like, why? Because they fixed a broken hero and now it's a normal hero?
We
Like,
went, yeah, our team went from first phasing. We used to first phase Disruptor every time because Disruptor is another hero that is one of my best. And we like to have consistent five support. Like, we like to pick similar heroes when it comes to drafting. So we used to always first phase Disruptor and an offlaner, or Disruptor and a mid if it was a highly contested mid. And now we've just pivoted that to now instead of first twoing like Disruptor Darkseer, now we'll first two Wyvern Darkseer or Wyvern whatever. So
and it seems to be working. You guys won the Battle Cup. Congratulations. Or you didn't.
I did.
Oh, you did. Okay, sorry. You did and Proud did.
It was me, Proud, Vafa, Skrunk, and
Fafnir. That's
Flub
right.
was
Flub,
MIA.
Flub didn't make it. I knew
He had a
one of you
firing
guys
game.
were MIA.
Yeah, so he's now, we're all officially better than Flub because he's not in the Battle Cup.
And congratulations, you guys beat one guy who won Tier 7 the week before, which was really cool, and it was exciting to watch those games. I went out in the semis, so I was able to watch your final game.
Yeah, it was a good time.
And it was really fun. But like I said, yeah, we're gonna try and incorporate something more educational. For those of you who are way too good to listen to this educational stuff, that's fine. We're gonna be putting this on a Friday slot. But for the players that are new, I'm not even new to the game. I've been playing for 2 years. I've logged thousands of games and thousands of hours, and yet I am still learning every single day. For those of you who want to learn as well from people who are quantifiably better than you, definitely tune into the Friday show. We're going to definitely try and make this educational. We'll be rotating in new people on a regular basis to ask questions and to answer questions. So be looking out for that. Ursinity, thank you for joining me today. And doing this, Ursinity has to record another show today, and you'll probably be delegated to casting a couple of tonight's in-houses because we are recording this on a Wednesday.
If I have time.
If you have time, yeah. Busy guy. But, of course, you can always find us at defenseofthepatients.com, on iTunes, search Defense of the Patients. You can tweet at us at @P_show. You can tweet at Ursinity, at Ursinity. It's pretty easy. You can find the Twitch channel. Ursinity is probably the number 1 user of the Twitch channel other than the .p in-houses. So get some perspective from Ursinity. I watched some games on Tuesday of Ursinity playing solo queue.
Yeah, I'm winning party MMR for my solo queue games.
Yeah.
Thanks, Valve. God, I'm still heated about that. And also, like, the Twitch stream, we stream very rarely Hakuna Marana team practices.
Yep.
And we've had a lot of good response from people because they like hearing
the comms are really fun to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. So
because it's a team. You guys play as a team.
Yeah.
And that's what's fun to hear is actual calls and people actually responding to a call.
Yeah, and me flaming my teammates because like not hitting my push to talk, that's a bad habit. But that is a very valuable thing, I will say. Not to tangentialize, but if you are whenever I'm coaching amateur teams, I always say like the most important thing is communication and making sure you have good communication. So if you want to listen to our team that has relatively good communication, I like to think, because we've been playing together for a long time, that's a very regular stream, usually like 9 o'clock EST. Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday are like real quote unquote practice days, but we practice pretty much every night.
Yeah.
So we'll tune into that. It's a good time.
And we've been having, I don't know, but Flub came in. You were going to come in Tuesday and help us practice, but yeah, no, definitely these guys are awesome resources. We've had overwhelming responses asking for builds, asking for advice. And we're going to give it to you because we're all trying to become better players. And I still am after 2 years.
Me too, honestly. I'm terrible at Dota. Every time I think I'm good at Dota, I plateau. So I've just reconciled to realize like I'm just less bad at this game than other people, but I'm still like, there's always room to grow.
Yeah.
I learn something new every game.
And that is the thing. Try and learn something new every game. Try and not get mad at the losses. Yesterday, shout out to Kelthuzad. He's a listener. I got in a game with him. There was a lot of argument about a drow going mid or going jungle. Was
it you?
No, it was not me.
Good.
But I did defend the drow, even though the drow did terribly. And I said, hey, look, let's just let the drow do it. She's going to do it anyway. Let's not complain about it. Let's just play the best we can.
It's a good mentality.
And he's like, oh my God, Roland? And I was like, yeah, hey, what's up? Like, how do I know you? And he's just like, oh, you don't know me, I know you. And I was like, nope, I know you now. And it completely diffused the situation. And I think it would, in any case, just to be like, hey, look, like, just let him do it. He's going to do it. Let him do it. Just do the best you can.
What I took from that is that if you want to diffuse an angry pub, have a podcast that people listen to.
No, I'm not.
It's that easy.
I think he would have listened to me regardless because I was nice about it.
I don't think so.
I was like, hey, look, like they're going to do it anyway because their whole idea was Drow is in the jungle, Windranger is solo offlane. And they were a 2-stack, and that's what they did. And it ended up being a very educational game for both of them because they revealed to us later in the game that they've only been doing it in bot matches and that it's working excellent for them in bot matches. And it's like, yeah, no shit. It's a bot match, they're programmed, to do certain things, whereas humans are completely random. And they totally ganked that drow about 1,000 times, and the drow was useless, and it led to people getting mad and reports. And I'll tell you, I think we could have won that game if there wasn't so much toxicity going around, and we would have just focused on ourselves and not focused so much on the drow dying a million times in the jungle. Yeah. So just keep that in mind. Keep a good attitude. I've really been trying to do that, honest. I've been watching my losses. Granted, I watch my wins on 2x speed. I watch my losses on 4x speed. So, maybe that's a bad thing. But I definitely slow down and watch my deaths. Watch why I'm dying. I'm noticing I'm dying while walking into fog. I notice I'm dying when people are off the map, off the mini-map, and I am extending. That's something that I've learned this past week that seems stupid, but look at your mini-map, and if you see enemies on your mini-map, go where they aren't if you're trying to farm. That really does work. For now, that's all the lessons we'll give. Thank you so much for joining today, Ursi, and look for another episode next Friday. Thanks, guys.